Welcome to the Our Forever Smiles podcast, a podcast created to support mothers of children who were born with clefts and those who love them. I'm your host, Laura Arroyo.
Hello, and welcome back to the Our Forever Smiles Cleft Mom Diaries and Support podcast. I am Laura Arroyo. Before we jump into this episode, I would like to invite you to join this community to hear conversations with other cleft moms and advocates that will help you feel supported along your journey. All I want you to do is click on the Facebook group that we have linked in the show notes. It's incredible to connect and to come together. And just thank you so much for just sharing your stories in groups and your experiences and just giving people lots of information and encouragement and support there. We really appreciate that. As a note, we are not medical doctors, and we do not intend for you to use the information that we share here as medical advice. We are parents and advocates who love our children, and we're sharing our own personal experiences. Today, I have a wonderful guest, Stacey. Stacey was born with a unilateral cleft lip and palate, and her little boy was also born with a bilateral cleft lip and palate. And she is a photographer and just using photography to help others born with clefts. Welcome, Stacey.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So I was sharing with Stacey before we started recording, is that I've seen we've built such a wonderful and beautiful community, and I have seen names and stuff that just kind of become familiar. You know, you just see people as we connect and communicate. I typically send a pre-interview questionnaire to people to fill out just so I can understand a little bit more about the person that I'm going to be speaking with today. And one of the things that you shared in your questionnaire, Stacey, is that the importance of connection. And so what do you think has been something that, what has that meant to you to be able to connect with other individuals that are born with cleft lip and palate?
It's been amazing. Growing up, I didn't know anybody else with a cleft. I kind of think I tried to forget about it and fit in and be as normal as possible. But when we got the diagnosis with our little boy, I did struggle for a while, and it did make me reach out and join lots of other communities, Facebook groups, and follow others going through similar things on Instagram. And to be honest, it's changed my life. I think just sharing stories between each other makes you not feel so alone. And I think it can really help you feel validated in what you're going through and make you feel not so different. Yeah, it's been incredible. It's so important, I think, to reach out to others.
Hi, I am so sorry to interrupt the show, but I just want to tell you about today's sponsor. Today's show sponsor is Sienna Media Integrated Marketing Agency. Sienna Media is more than just a marketing agency. They are your partners in progress. Their mission is simple: to alleviate marketing bandwidth, allowing creative business owners to focus on what they set out to do: create. Sienna Media empowers creatives to thrive without the burden of managing their own social media and marketing campaigns. Visit siennamedia.com.
It's one of the reasons why I started this podcast. One of the things that I always share is I just never want any mom to ever feel alone again, you know?
Yeah.
And I just remember feeling like I was one in a million when my daughter was born, that this was only happening to me, and this just rare thing that happened. And I'm going to have to search in the archives of finding information. And as you probably have known yourself, right, being a cleft-affected individual, the journey is there's been so much growth within the community, right? There's so many more resources probably from when you were younger than when you had your son. And then even now, right, even more
Definitely.
Resources
Yes.
available to everyone. I think one of the things that's really special too about what you shared is, as I've talked to parents, it's different. There's a difference between being a patient and being a parent, right?
Oh,
and
most definitely.
And the experiences run parallel. And it's just so interesting that once you received your son's diagnosis, it's okay, now it's not just me, but I also have this immense responsibility to ensure that this life or this person doesn't necessarily has a better experience than I had growing up.
Yeah.
Was that the sentiment that you were feeling?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely. So I have an older daughter as well who isn't cleft affected, but I always knew it was something that I could have passed down. And then getting that news was just so hard.
Yeah, that I just in thinking about that as well. Do you have any siblings?
No, I'm an only child. And
Oh,
before
okay.
me, as far as we knew at the time, there was no one else in the family that had ever been cleft affected. But I have since found out, since my granny died, that my granny's granny had a cleft. So it was there, but just a little way back.
Yeah. And so you mentioned you knew that there was a possibility that you could pass it down. Do you believe that it was genetic or that type of thing? Or you just kind of had a feeling that that could happen?
I think that I knew that, yeah, I had a feeling that it could happen. I had heard that sometimes they think it can be genetic, but sometimes it can just come out of nowhere and they don't really know what causes it. Both me and my son have had genetic testing and nothing's shown up. But obviously there must be something there that means that he's inherited some sort of gene.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Genetics is so complicated. I
Yeah.
mean, they've done countless studies on what could happen, the
Yeah.
possibilities, and even, a lot of parents, I feel like in the United States, we do the NIPT test, which is to me now that I know a little bit about genetics, it's kind of useless, right? It's like you just you can't really find out really pertinent information from it. You can find out the gender, but
Yeah.
outside of that, there isn't very much information that you'd be able to find from that. And then we did have genetic testing done, but they were looking for 22q deletion. And so that type of thing, it's like they're really focused on like a specific thing and
Okay.
they weren't looking at anything else. And so it is interesting the way that genetics does play a factor in some ways, and that we don't really have a lot of answers about
No,
things.
no, no, exactly.
Yeah. I want to go back to just thinking about what you remember from your own childhood.
Yeah.
Do you remember, have you ever had the opportunity to talk to your own parents about what it was like when they saw you and they got to meet you?
Yeah.
Because I know ultrasounds were very rare. Even when I was born, they were very rare. So you kind of just figured out what was going on once the baby got here,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, my mum said, yeah, we didn't know about it on the scan. We didn't know about it till you were here. It was a bit of a shock, but they just had to get on with it. And I remember my mum saying when we went for the scan and we found out about the cleft with our little boy, and then we did struggle. The struggle for me was more because we got sent for a fetal medicine scan the next day, and they thought that he only had one kidney as well. So they thought that with the cleft and the kidney that there could be some other syndromes going on. And that was what I found the hardest, like not knowing what could be. Whereas obviously with the cleft, I knew what was coming. And I know certain people have said to me, oh, it must be easier because you know what's coming. But there's two sides to that. Yes, in some ways, but in another way, yeah, I know what's coming. So it's not easy in a way.
And your parents finding out what
Yes.
when
So
they found
yeah,
out. Yeah.
Mum said that in a way she thinks it was easier not knowing until I was there, and she just kind of had to cope with it rather than when we found out the 20-week scan. And then because of everything else that went on, we found the rest of pregnancy very, very stressful. Yeah, both me and my husband ended up getting signed off work with stress and anxiety. So I think a lot of that was the not knowing whether there was something else going on. But yeah, Mum always thought that she thinks it would have been easier not to know, but I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know
I go back and forth with that as well because I
you didn't
had that
know, did
experience
you?
as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know. And part of me, I am grateful. I guess I'm grateful for the things that went well, like I'm grateful that I did get to enjoy my pregnancy and I didn't have to worry, because I think at least when you do have a child that like you don't have that extra worry and that not knowing, like whenever Giselle was born, I knew what it was. Even though I did feel very isolated, as I've shared, I felt very alone. It was a short amount of time before they figured out like, okay, this is the game plan, versus we're talking 2 to 4 weeks of stress versus 20 weeks of stress, which is I empathize with that a lot. Like I can't imagine that,
Yeah.
And so, and then I'm able to tackle what's happening because I know what it is. And it's just the unknown is very troubling. And so I can,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah, it is. A lot of moms struggle of course, with learning about the diagnosis as well.
Yeah.
And because you've shared that you've known, right? You know what's to come. What was it like for yourself just growing up and having surgeries?
I think surgeries wise, I just kind of I didn't know any different, so I just kind of got on with it. But I know certainly my mum was very pleased once I was old enough to sign the consent myself, because she said that's yeah, and obviously I now know what that feels like to sign the consent and hand your little baby over to some surgeons. It's so hard. Definitely, I was quite a happy, confident child until sort of end of primary school. When I started to get bullied and started to know that I looked different. And yeah, secondary school was really tough. I got really, really bullied and just hated every second really of secondary school. But I kind of, in those days, you just kind of didn't really talk about it. Just head down, crack on, and keep a little tiny circle of friends and got on with my work. So certainly when I got the diagnosis of the cleft for Dylan, the main worry was, oh my God, the bullying. And then I thought, well, I just need to fill him with confidence. I just need to build that confidence in him so much. But then I was like, how do I do that when I don't feel confident myself? So I really struggled with that. But I have to say, since having him and since, well, when I was pregnant and reaching out to the community and then having him, my confidence has just grown and grown and grown. I think because of him, I don't know. Just you
Yeah.
want to advocate, don't you, for your children, no matter what. But when they've got a cleft as well, it makes you really want to just raise awareness and advocate and and I think by doing that, I've built my own confidence.
Yeah, I say the same, literally. Like, people always ask, like, oh, you have this podcast and you're like, you've put yourself online. And, I have a personal Instagram and I sometimes I'll post there, but I kind of forget about it because I don't really think about myself like, oh, let me record. And, it's a little problematic because sometimes when we're looking for like pictures of myself and Giselle together, like I don't have anything because I don't think to record myself or to take pictures. But then Giselle came and it really changed everything for me. I just really stopped caring about what people thought about me.
Yeah.
And it just became totally less about any image or any worry that I had of a commentary of what people would say or what people would think. And it really is life-changing.
Yeah.
And I feel so connected to this community in a way that I've never felt in any other community as well. Like, everyone has different identities.
Yeah.
And the cleft community is a really special identity to have.
Definitely.
It truly is. And you mentioned about this whole idea of like, all right, you're going through this something that's really hard, but it's not really talked about in your household. Is that something that you you had a different approach with Dylan, or did you feel like
Yeah, I think already I've always been a lot more open with my daughter growing up. She's 7 now. So yeah, we try and make sure that she knows to come to us. And it wasn't that I didn't feel like I could go to my parents. They both were brilliant parents, very open and honest. I don't know whether maybe I felt ashamed that I was getting bullied, and and it was something. Whereas now I think they encourage going to the teachers about it and things like that. Back then it was kind of, oh, don't be a telltale type thing, don't. Yeah, and you'd probably just get more trouble if you went to the teachers about it. But yeah, I certainly try and encourage our daughter, and obviously starting to with Dylan. He's just about to turn 3, so he's you can sort of start to bring in those ideas, can't you, of being open. And I've certainly, as part of what I've found through my connections within the community, is I think a lady that you're going to interview quite soon, actually, Katie Manning, who has opened my mind to this whole trauma-informed thing, which has been absolutely life-changing as well. Has taught me a lot about myself, and in turn how to be with my kids a bit more, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think that's extremely important. Yes, Katie, I'm so excited to have her on, because I do know that she does do a lot of work in the community, not only as an artist, but also in therapy and that type of thing. So we're really excited to just have her on. Do you remember, did you have all of your surgeries, like your lip repair, at like 4 or 5 months, or what was like?
I think the timings were a bit different when I was younger. I think I had my first surgery for my lip at 3 months old, I think. And then the palate at about I can't remember now. I think the palate might have been a bit later, like 18 months. Yeah, so I've had 13, no, maybe more than that now, about 13 surgeries. Some of them in more recent years, obviously elective surgeries. I've been really lucky, and in the last couple of years I've had a couple of surgeries. Actually, being with Dylan, with our surgeon, he then said, sort of started to talk to me about my surgeries and things, and I sort of said, I wasn't entirely happy, and he said, well, you can come back, we can still do stuff. So I was like, well, let's get Dylan over the first main bit first, and then but I've had quite a lot of my surgeries all in the same place, but then they stopped doing them at the place that I actually ended up working for 13 years as well, as a medical photographer. And they've started doing the main surgeries up in London, but we still go to the Queen Victoria Hospital for the clinic appointments. So
yeah, and so that's so interesting. We all moms do this. I feel like we start putting our kids before our own needs or wants, and that type of thing. And thinking about those surgeries, do you know what was the first surgery that you remember having?
Yeah, the bone graft. The bone graft I remember, because I remember my hip hurting more than my mouth. And almost having to learn to walk again because of the pain in my hip. I remember that about it. But I also quite like the fact that I think I was old enough to sort of give myself the medication. I just had to press a button, which I thought was fantastic.
You're like over prescribing yourself. No, that's wonderful. I'm glad you were able to at least find that glimmer of light. I think it's interesting. I asked this question to a lot of cleft-affected adults, and that is always the first surgery. I should put like a collage together. Everyone, bone graft,
Oh, wow.
bone graft, bone
Yeah.
graft. Yeah. Well, and I think it's such a unique surgery because you wake up not being able to walk or having to use crutches. And
Yeah.
also like you're having pain in two sites. And it's an odd thing. And you're still, most people are still very young. You can't necessarily really process what has happened to you.
No.
But you just remember being in pain.
Yeah.
And yeah,
I had to have it
that's
twice
really
as well,
tough.
unfortunately, because it didn't take the first time. So,
Wow. Was there anything that you feel like your mother shared with you that may have helped you during the time growing up, or maybe even now, after receiving Dylan's diagnosis, was there something that you found helpful to have her around?
yeah, it was definitely really helpful to have her around, particularly like in the early days with feeding, and yeah, just like she knew that, like, for me, they didn't have the same bottles obviously when I was younger, so they just had, I think, more of the squeezy type bottles, and I used to just take lots of air in and then throw quite a lot of it back up again. Whereas obviously now we ended up using the Dr. Brown's with Dylan, so it was quite different, but it was just really nice and reassuring to have her around. And some of the issues that I was having in those early days, just, yeah, it was nice to have mum around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even just like having someone understand what you're going through that's like
Yeah.
right there is like, even if they're like not even able to really help, they're just there.
Yeah.
Sometimes I understand it now, like my mom with me when I was going through labor and delivery. I had her there and I said, she's going to be so helpful to me, and really, like, she was a total wreck. She was not, like, she was just not helpful at all. And like, now that I am a mom, I understand, but it's like, because it's like watching your child have to go through this. It's like, she
Yeah.
was no help. Like, it's just like it's so fun. She needed help by the end of it. It was so bad. But but yeah, just having someone that has had that experience, just even being next to you I think is really helpful.
Yeah.
Um, and the day that you found out about Dylan's diagnosis, can you walk me through what that day was like for you?
Yeah. So we went for the 20-week scan. Me and my husband Dave was with me. We uh, we were like, obviously, so we decided we wanted to know about the sex, but we wanted our daughter to tell us. So that was the bit we wanted. So we wanted the sonographer to put it in, put like a pink or a blue bit of paper in an envelope for us to. So that was, we were getting them to do that, which yeah. So what was what we were most excited about, and then obviously we're having the scan, and I did say, because at the time we were still wearing masks because of COVID, so obviously she wouldn't have been able to see that I had a cleft. I said, could you just have a more of a check in that area, to see whether there is a cleft, because I have a cleft. And it just, yeah, you just get a sense like it all goes a bit quiet, and you just have a sense that, yeah, there's obviously something. And then she said, oh, I think you're right. I think there is a cleft. I'm just going to go and get a colleague to come and have a double check. So yeah, they went off to get another person who came in and had a look and said, yeah, I think you're right. So then they took us off to a separate room where we sort of sat for a while on our own. And I was sort of saying to my husband, are you okay? I think at that point I was okay with it because I always knew it was a possibility, and that whether I was, I don't know, whether I was being stronger because I knew that my husband was going to struggle a little bit with it. And then they came in and they said, you'll need to go for a fetal medicine scan, which they actually got the next day. So yeah, we came out of there obviously very deflated and thinking how excited we were about wanting our daughter to tell us whether she was having a brother or a sister, but at the same time feeling sort of a bit like shell shocked, I think, in some ways. And I think I found it quite hard. I think because my husband was finding it quite hard, I was taking that a bit personally. And that we did struggle a little bit with that. And then obviously we came home and we knew that our daughter was really excited about going to be telling us whether she was having a baby brother or a sister. So we kind of just tried to forget about that what had happened, and obviously not to let on to our daughter either, like take away from her excitement about it. So yeah, we filmed her showing us taking out the blue out the envelope, and I'm having a baby brother. It was so cute.
Yeah. So how old is she?
She's 7 now, so she was 4. Yeah. 4. So
wow.
Yeah,
that's adorable.
Yeah. She was so cute. And then so we sort of dealt with the cleft bit on our own for a while. We did share it with our parents that day, and obviously everybody was quite I hope they've got it wrong, or and then we went for the scan the next day, and they confirmed the cleft, and then that's when they said about they think he's only got one kidney, so that could mean that it could be another syndrome related. So then they sort of gearing us towards having an amniocentesis test to find out what was going on, and even termination was kind of like not. Yeah, it was talked about. It was I was absolutely not. I didn't even want to have the amniocentesis to find out because I didn't want the risk of the miscarriage. But then, because we'd chosen not to have any of that, that's why I think we then did our own heads in, because you go on Google and you find out all the things that it could be. So that's what we then found really hard for quite a while. And eventually I think we got to a point where we sort of said, like, we've decided not to have these extra tests, so we need to stop doing our own heads in with what it could be, because where is it getting us? It's not. It's just making us more worried, more. So we did eventually reach a point where we were like, right, we'll just see what happens and accept whatever.
That's a great point. You kind of make this decision to do things a certain way, and then continue to worry even after that. And so sometimes you have to kind of eventually move on. I was thinking about something that you mentioned as well, this idea of people, saying, hopefully they have got it wrong. That's got to be an interesting message that you hear from others, because you're also cleft-affected, and it's like, you're kind of, I assume that you're hoping that they also got it wrong, but also it's just kind of like, well, like, I'm fine. Like, it's okay if they're not wrong. How does that happen? Does that feeling
definitely,
like bittersweet, I guess I would imagine it is.
Yeah, it definitely feels a bit like, oh, well, hang on, like, like that. That's quite, derogatory to me. That's, like, I could take that quite. But part of me was also like, oh, I hope they've got it wrong, because obviously I don't want him to have to go through everything I went through. But it was hard, and like I say, I think some of the types of things that my husband was saying, I was taking a bit personally as well. And it was also at that point where obviously we didn't know whether we were having a boy or a girl. And I think you've talked about this on another podcast, like we found ourselves saying, I hope it is a boy because I think it'll be easier for a boy. And now I'm like, I don't know. Like, yeah, in some ways, yes, because yes, they can grow a moustache to cover it, and there isn't so much pressure on. Like, there's a different kind of pressure on women and how they look facially to what there is boys. But yeah, my little boy is sensitive. He's a sensitive little soul, but at the same time, he's 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 a character. He's not going to let anyone mess with him.
Yeah, those boys are like that. I have 2 brothers myself.
Aww.
And so, yeah, I find myself being more fierce, I guess, or just, very like willing to stand up for myself versus them. And they are too, obviously, right? They're still men, but they tend to be more, they're just more sensitive. They're mama's boys.
Yeah.
They're very close to my mom.
Oh,
They
yeah.
call her every single day. They're like so attached to her. And, they're in their 30s and 40s and still like they are just, they're her boys. So
Yeah. There's a little special connection, I think. Yeah.
yeah. And I think, I was going to ask you that if you do feel bonded to him in a unique way because you have this common identity.
Yeah, I definitely do. I definitely feel a very special connection with us. Yeah. Sometimes that's hard for, I don't want to be seen as it being any different from me and Neve, which my daughter. And I think sometimes she picks up on that a little. So I try and say to her, well, Mummy and Dylan have got a special connection because we were both born with a cleft. So I sort of say, well, you taught me how to be a mummy, and that's our special connection. And Dylan's teaching me other stuff, and because we've both got the cleft, we've got a special connection because of that. But yeah, I think there'll always be a bit of a, I don't know, like an understanding, I suppose.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah.
Yeah. I think that approach also is just, I think being open with that, right? Like being honest about that we have a bond in a different way. And so do Dylan and I, and it's different. We both have bonds, but they're different bonds.
Yes. Yeah.
And, but yeah, and then it doesn't help that he is a boy, which I tell you about my own brothers, right? They're so attached to my mom, and then also he's the youngest, so he has different needs than she has currently, and so it does. I think a lot of parents who have a child born with a cleft that also have siblings, they struggle with that, no matter what, if they're cleft affected or not, because they have to go to all the appointments. They have all of these special, needs. They need to be held for a while because of gas. And it's just like, with so many different things that happen. And there's a lot of, I feel like, guilt that comes with that. Like you feel like you're not giving the sibling enough attention and enough care. And it's a common thread between so many cleft moms that feel that way.
Yeah.
And so talk to me about when Dylan was born. So did you get induced or, because
yes.
I mean, obviously you learned that everything was going to be okay, right? Because that must have been a huge relief.
Yes. Well, so I was induced because I had gestational diabetes. So they wanted to induce me 38 weeks, but I managed to push through till 39 weeks because my levels were under control. It was all very... So things started happening quite quickly. Then it happened too quickly and there was nobody available, so they had to kind of slow it back off again. And then, so it was a few days of that. And then I had to have my waters broken, and then things started happening a lot quicker. And then, the actual final phase of labour was very, very quick. I think was a bit of a shock for me and Dylan. He came out very quick, and he was quite grey. Every time they stopped agitating him, he stopped breathing. So it was all quite stressful and quite traumatic. And because of the stuff that we'd read about with the syndromes, some of them being that he wouldn't be with us very long, it was very traumatic. So I had my husband the other side of the room in tears, absolutely panicking. I was obviously on the bed waiting for my placenta. I couldn't really do much at all other than sort of say to him, he'll be okay, he'll be okay. And I think somewhere in me I knew he would be. And then he got taken off to Skaboo, and he ended up on oxygen for a few hours, so not too long. And then they found that he had a little chest infection as well, bless him. So he had antibiotics for a few days as well. And then, the cleft team were fantastic. It was a Sunday, and they were down within a few hours with different bottles for us to try out. He ended up being tube fed a bit, and then we sort of slowly, like when he wasn't taking enough from the bottle. Saying that, going back a little bit, we tried the different bottles, and Dylan made it pretty clear which one he liked. As I say, he's a character even then. And then we would sort of do a bit of bottle and a bit of tube, and he was sort of finding he was wearing himself out a bit too much, which is where we'd have to top up with the tube feeding. And then they did start to show us how to do the tube feeding to go home with, which was a bit of a scary thought. But again, Dylan obviously thought, no, I'm not going home with the tube. And every time we thought he was doing well, he just smashed it and did even better. We ended up not having to go home with a tube feed, which was brilliant.
Yeah. Literally, that's the same thing that happened to me. My daughter was in the NICU, and they were doing their rounds, and they said, hey, we hate to tell you all, but if she doesn't, start eating well soon, we're gonna have to tube feed her. And my fiance always says, like, I think she overheard them saying that, because from that minute on, she's like, bring it on, like bring on the bottle, and she's like, I'm ready now. And stuff like that.
I definitely got some sass.
Wow. And so, I'm so sorry that all of those things happen. I think that birth is like a really, it's hard. It's really hard for moms, and it can go so many different ways. It's such a delicate moment, right? Where things can, not go well. They can spiral quickly. And so, when did they share any information about his kidneys? Did they ever kind of tell you what his status was and how he was doing in general?
No, the kidney, we kept saying about the kidney, but we didn't end up getting a scan on his kidney till it was about 3 months, which is then when we found out that he did have 2 kidneys, but they're both on the same side. So they're sort of one behind the other. So they're functioning fine, and they're all fine, but they haven't got quite the same protection as they would have because they're one behind the other. But I had to keep pushing for. Nobody was really telling us anything about the kidneys, but they were very good at keeping us updated about how he was doing with regards to the feeding, and so we were there. It was hard. I had to be kept on the ward, and he was not with me, so. He was in the Skaboo. Obviously, I could sort of keep going backwards and forwards, but it was quite hard being on the labour ward with all these other mums in my bay, had their babies with them, and mine was next door, which was quite hard. But yeah, actually something else that came to mind, like with regards to when he was born, like when they put him on me, like the cleft, the thing about the cleft just completely disappeared. That didn't matter at all. He was beautiful, and even my husband said, like, I just want him to be okay. Like, the cleft doesn't matter at all. Like, and then as he did better and better, my husband was like, he's my hero, which I always remember him saying that.
Your husband is, it reminds me of my mom, when I was telling you about my mom.
Yeah.
It's like, you have to like calm everyone else down, and like, provide them support while you're like, that's funny.
Yeah.
But, it's because they have a heart, and they can't handle it.
No.
It's really tough. Yeah. And so what is the surgery process like? Is it in the UK?
Yeah.
Are you in the UK?
Yeah.
Yeah. What is the surgery process like in the UK?
So Dylan's had 3 surgeries so far. He had his first lip repair at 6 months old, where they stitched both sides, and then the very front of the palate, and then they trying to think. So he was born in the February. He had the first surgery in August. Then he had the second in the December and the third in the April. So the second surgery, they then opened the scar back up. I think because then the skin had stretched a bit, so they could pull it better, and then made more of a Y-shaped scar. And then the third surgery was to repair the palate. It was really hard, like being on the other side of it and just watching him be put to sleep, and then when he waking up quite distraught and swollen after the surgery, and that was really hard. But again, we were only in for each of those surgeries. We were only in hospital overnight, and then he was just eating, drinking, and just like, I want to go home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, do you all have cleft teams there? Like how they
Yes.
have in the United States? Okay.
Yeah.
And it's your care is free, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, we're very lucky with that. Very, very lucky. Yeah, I always say that, I don't know how my mum would have coped if she'd have had to pay for my surgery, and now the same. Like, we're so lucky that we get it for free.
Yeah. And is Dylan the next surgery that he will have will be his bone graft, or does he have any others coming up?
It's possible. So at the moment, the bone graft is the next definite one, but it depends on how his speech goes. So he's going to be starting speech therapy fairly soon, and then we'll see how he goes with that. They may have to do like an X-ray type thing on him while he's talking, and depending on that, he may have to have a palate lengthening surgery. I think probably at like 4-ish. I think I never had to have that surgery, so I really hope he doesn't. But obviously he had both sides, and I only had one side. But yeah, he's chatting away. He's just trying to make himself understood. Sometimes it's a bit tricky, but he's getting better and better. He also wears hearing aids as well, bless him. But again, he can hear without them. He's just, I think they do help make it a bit clearer, and in turn will help his speech. So
his speech.
Yeah.
Yeah. You talked a little bit about the work that you're doing with Katie. Can you share just maybe a little bit about what that is and kind of like how you've been able to balance all of this? You also mentioned, like, that you did have some struggles early in the beginning with the diagnosis, and obviously still going through these surgeries. It's really challenging for our moms. How have you been able to balance all of this and kind of still support your mental health and all of the self-care needs that you need?
Yeah. I think a lot of the stuff, so I did with Katie, she had a cleft confidence course, which was probably, I don't know, about six mums, so like 6 clefts, and it was learning all about the nervous system and regulating, and it was just very eye-opening, and it has taught me a lot of different things that I can do to sort of regulate myself, like going for walks, different breathing, and I think it has just sort of made it all make sense about, and just by understanding it more, it validates it more so that you feel like you're not going crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And just by that, it just makes it all a lot easier to deal with. But yeah, I've definitely used quite a few of the techniques as well, and I've also done a couple of spinal energetic sessions, which has been fantastic. She's just sort of opened it up to me over like lots of different things about, I think it's called EDM, which is to do with energy alignment. Just a whole other world. And it's really helped. And I think just by being in that community and sharing things, that's really helped my mental health as well.
Yeah. And what is something that you wish people knew about children and just people born with cleft lip and palate in general?
I wish they knew that it wasn't just a quick fix. Like, so many people think, oh, it's just one little surgery and that's it, done. Obviously, it's not. There's quite a few surgeries. There's all the appointments. There's possible speech therapy, possible hearing problems, and that's obviously all just the physical side. Me personally, I have had a lot of trouble with mental health in sort of through my 20s and 30s. So that's not the experience of everybody. It depends. Yeah, I think had I known more people growing up with a cleft, maybe I wouldn't have felt like that so much, because I wouldn't have felt so different and alone. So yeah, I think that's, yeah, I want people to know that it isn't just a quick fix, and there's a lot more to it than that, but also that it's not anything to be scared of. People should be open about it. People should, I think, like, kids are just curious. Kids will stare sometimes, but I think we need to educate children from like a really young age about all of like cleft and other facial differences, because the more that we can do that, the more that they'll accept it from a younger age, and it won't be seen as different, I think, more and more. I'm really like, that's kind of my mission now, to like just educate and raise awareness as much as I can to try and make people with visible differences lives easier, hopefully.
Yeah. And so you talked about a little bit too about your photography.
Yes.
So you said you're a medical photographer?
Yeah, so my main job is as a medical photographer. I've done that for 20 years now. So obviously I do see quite a lot of of cleft babies and see through their treatment, which is really lovely.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it really is. And then also on the side of that I obviously, having a family and stuff, I do a lot of family photographs, babies, newborns, weddings, all sorts. But in the last couple of years, I've started my own project to try and raise more awareness of cleft, and I'm hoping to expand that out to other visible differences. I want to photograph, I do lovely, beautiful portraits, photos of people born with clefts, because I think when people are given that diagnosis at their 20-week scan, they go to Google and you look at the first page of Google Images. It's full of clinical, sterile, sometimes quite scary photos. So I want to turn that on its head and one day eventually fill it with beautiful portraits of cleft-affected individuals. Just, that's my aim.
Yeah, I love that. And that's perfect. What a mission. Yeah, I love that. I had never thought about that. And yes, that would be wonderful to be able to have the opportunity to do that. So I encourage you to keep going.
Yeah.
But just in closing, what has your journey taught you about life, your own personal journey and the one that you're on with Dylan now?
I think I've learned not to judge by appearance. I think that's a big one. But I have certainly in the last few years learned that reaching out and being part of a community, having that connection with others is so important. Sharing stories, and also just to try and love yourself. Like, I think that's really, really important. Like, it's hard to do for a lot of people, I think, but I think once you accept yourself, it just changes everything.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Stacey. I appreciate you being on today and sharing your story and sharing Dylan's story. And I am looking forward to seeing so many of your photographs on Instagram, on Facebook, and wherever you share, so that we can continue to repost those so that we can have new imagery for cleft-affected individuals. I would love to see that and be on that mission with you. So thank you so much for sharing that and being on with us today.
Thank you very much.
And thank you all for listening to the Our Forever Smiles Cleft Mom Diaries and Support podcast. Be sure to subscribe and submit a review of the podcast wherever you listen. I hope that you've enjoyed this audio experience. Maybe you cried a little, laughed a little, but more importantly, I hope that you feel a little piece of reassurance and even joy in your journey. Talk to you next week.
Hey everyone, it's Laura here. I'm popping in today because I need your help. If Our Forever Smiles has ever helped you, if you've learned something new, felt less alone, or found hope through this podcast, then I'm asking you to help keep it going. Creating this podcast, sharing stories, and building a space where cleft families feel seen and supported is something that I pour my heart into. But the truth is, I cannot do it alone. If we want to reach more families and provide even more resources, we need your support. So I thought of a creative way to do this. For just $2 a month, you can help ensure this podcast keeps going strong. For $5 a month, you'll unlock exclusive Moms in Real Life content, real unfiltered conversations about motherhood and career and everything in between. And then for $10 a month, you can get everything plus exclusive merch to show your support. If this podcast has helped you and you want to see it grow to help other families that are probably facing the very same challenges that you are facing right now, please consider supporting us today. Every dollar goes toward making a difference for cleft families just like yours. And right now, we'll be using the funds to elevate the show for production. So we'll be able to add more video and just get new equipment. And as soon as this community is established and we're able to do more, we definitely plan to go beyond the scope of just this community. We want to be able to support scholarships for new craniofacial surgeons. We want to be able to support global surgeries and just really spread our efforts to continue to make an impact in our community. I just want to thank you in advance, and I'm just so grateful that you all are able to support me and support this community here. And it's definitely something that I'm really looking forward to. The link is in the show notes, and I just want to do a shameless plug here. The Moms in Real Life podcast is so cool, so candid, and yeah, it's definitely something that you'll want to check out. Thank you all again.